Hello. Welcome back to Let's Talk Palace with Henry Swain. As always, we've been off for a few weeks, international break here, and then, we thought we'd just give a week to let Millwall in the Cup happen and West Ham in the league happen as well, where we have continued our undefeated streak, and that's a lot of what today's episode is going to be about. How are you, Henry, anyways, mate?
Yeah, I'm good. Been a nice busy weekend of football and drinking, so I've had a great one. And obviously Palace winning is, just adds to that, makes it even better. So yeah, all good, mate.
Yeah, exactly. It was perfect. I mean, it wasn't our best ever performance, but we grinded out the result. And this is what Glasner has brought. He's brought a team who kind of get the draws or the wins when we don't look at our best. And that's why we have managed 17 undefeated games in a row. But first of all, it's been spoken a bit by Palace fans this week. Why are the media not really talking about this undefeated streak, mate?
I don't know. I think there's a big part of it's. I mean, I did a little video on it and kind of tried to highlight the significance of it. And I think there's only like kind of between 7 and 9 teams that have kind of done or had a run like this. I think I did either 16 or longer because at that point it was 16. And since almost, I think for the last maybe the last decade in the Premier League, there's only been really a handful of teams that have done it. The only thing I can say is the break between the season, although other runs have also spanned the length of 2 seasons over the break. That might play a factor, and also the fact that if you include the penalty shootouts, if you say those games are draws, then it's I think more draws than it is wins. But other than that, I don't really have anything for you. I'm not really sure why nobody's talking about it. It's funny. We all started saying that. I made the video I made. There was quite a lot of discourse around it. I think Dan said it about it on his podcast as well. And then suddenly, as if by magic, TNT Sports, Sky Sports, BBC Match of the Day's Twitter accounts were all talking about it as well. So it's just one of those weird ones, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. And in that run, we've beaten the likes of, Spurs in that run, Villa twice. We've been on the cup run, won the FA Cup, won the Community Shield, beaten Man City, drawn to Liverpool twice, beat them on penalties in one of them as well. Drawn to Chelsea. Yes, there are a lot of draws, but a lot of them draws have come against these big six sides as well as some of the other ones like Forest, who at the time we drew to them this season, it still is a very decent result. They had a huge squad and we kind of were just coming off the back of playing in Europe for the first time. So, as well, 2 games in Europe, in the playoffs doing that as well. Fatigue has clearly hit, but we still managed to stay undefeated. It should be appreciated more. And I was listening to Sky Sports earlier, I think of around 1:15, and they were kind of showing the Premier League table, talking about the other 3 teams in at the time in the top 4, because obviously we're in a Champions League spot before the games today. And they kind of just said Crystal Palace are in fourth, like it was nothing, like we haven't gone 5 games undefeated, like we haven't continued marching on as we have done. And that is a little bit sad to see, but they focus on the bigger clubs at this time, and that just is how it is. I feel like Bournemouth aren't getting enough respect either, to be honest. They're doing a great job at the moment against some tough teams, and
You could
everyone
say the
kind
same
of just
about
brushes it.
Brentford as well. A lot of people said they were going to have a bad start and they've done well. To be honest, if anything, I'd say to Palace fans, who cares? Like, I wouldn't pay too much attention. It's probably better that we're not being focused on, and we can kind of just go about our business quietly. I'm perfectly happy with that as long as we're, performing well and getting good results week in, week out. Then I don't really care who's talking about it. As much as it's nice to get the praise, like it doesn't make a difference to what happens on the pitch.
Yeah, and while talking about on the pitch, we'll briefly chat about yesterday's game against West Ham. 1-0 going into the first half, half time, decent, scored from a set piece. Weren't setting the world alight, but I felt like we weren't even going out of second gear. Second half happens, we could have been 2-0 up. They score from a corner. Very poor defending for it, but then we'll kind of defend for the next 15 minutes. West Ham were piling on the pressure. Amazing goal by Tyrick Mitchell. I mean, we'll talk about that a bit more later. But overall performance, mate, what did you think? Did you think it was fine? As I said, didn't really have to go out of second gear.
Yeah, I'd probably agree. I do think that the reason that happens is when we play teams that are maybe a little bit worse, we kind of we tend to drop our levels a little bit. I don't know if that's kind of a subconscious thing or whether that's maybe intentional. Even taking Pino off at halftime, obviously he's having a scan. We don't know the extent of that injury, but that kind of felt at the time very precautionary, but more so like, I'm comfortable that we can get a result here without Jeremy Pino on the pitch, so there's no point risking him. But yeah, a good result. I think you could really, to be honest, use that as a kind of getting back into the rhythm game. The likes of Wharton coming back and starting. I thought he had an okay game. I thought he was kind of just standard for his levels. And I thought Nketiah was actually really good. I know he was offside quite a bit, but I think the kind of the role he played in dropping deep and getting on the ball and winning fouls and kind of keeping hold of the ball and seeing out that kind of 2-1 win later on, I think he did a really good job. So it's good to see him back. Still can't believe that Mateta played the full 90 minutes. Absolutely mental. And you're right, the defending for the goal we conceded was just awful. I think it was almost like we've been kind of watching how West Ham were defending against our set pieces and decided to copy them for some reason. But well taken goal, the first one, elements of luck, but I think that was our 8th corner of the game or 7th corner of the game in the first half. So it had been coming. And then, the second goal, man, what a finish that is. I mean, it's you kind of wish it was almost like 5-10 yards a bit further out to make it look even better, but genuinely dropped to him. And I think I saw somebody on Twitter say that you were expecting it to go to the car park. And then he just smashes it past Areola. Absolutely no chance. And ultimately wins us the game. So, I mean, you can't complain. We didn't set the world alight, but honestly, like I said earlier, as long as we're kind of ticking over and the results are positive, I'm not too fussed about the performances at this moment in time.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, I swear in that match, Mitchell tried a shot with his left foot, absolutely skied it, and then scores a perfect volley with his weak foot. So
that
lots of
was
confusion.
that was just after the goal, in fairness, because it was almost like it reverted straight back to time. I mean, he shot from like 30 odd yards and it went straight into the top stand. It was brilliant.
Yeah, so he might have to, start shooting a bit more with his right foot, apparently. But yeah, I was in that away end and I was so confused for like the goal. It just felt like it came out of nowhere completely. And I just wanted to touch upon Adam Wharton for this because that's what we missed against Sunderland. It sounds so simple or it looks so simple, but the fact that he just crossed that ball in, pinpoint accuracy, caused that kind of little bit of chaos to then get
Yeah.
Mitchell the opportunity. That is just what we miss, isn't it? And I just wish he could play every minute of every game because them little things that go under the radar, they're just so crucial, aren't they?
Oh yeah, I genuinely couldn't agree more, and I think you're spot on. I think that's exactly what we've missed, and I don't know, like I feel like people were maybe a little bit overcritical of Wharton's performance. I think we do expect an awful lot from him, but maybe to the point now that we kind of overlook the things that he does do really well. That if Will Hughes, for example, had put that cross in, we'd probably be really complimentary of it. And you're completely right. It's just about having the ability to put the ball into that danger area, cause a bit of chaos, because ultimately that's how you force errors and you create chances, especially against the West Ham team who are so suspect defensively. So it was great to have Wharton back, and I think he's going to play a massive role in the kind of European games. And like you said, you want him to play every minute of every game, especially because this could be the last season we have him. And I just absolutely love him. I think he was brilliant. I thought also Hughes was great, but for me, easily my man of the match was Chris Richards. I thought he was absolutely fantastic against Somerville, who I thought had a decent game, but Richards was just superb. Won 100% of his ground duels, 3 out of 4 aerial duels, made 12 clearances, which is just absolutely bonkers. And it genuinely, it just was an absolute rock. He just come on leaps and bounds since he came into the team to replace Chalobah when he was recalled by Chelsea. So I think Chris Richards definitely needs a shout out after that performance.
Yeah, literally what I was going to say next, basically, about Richards. You took the words right out of my mouth. He was perfect. He was so good defensively. And he is, again, another player who feels like a huge loss when he's not in the team because you got that kind of technical ability with Gay and Lacroix, maybe not as much with Richards. But, when we just need to proper defend, he is just the first to every ball. Really crucial in them moments when West Ham were on top as well. And top performance from him. And then finally, just from the game, Uche didn't get any minutes. What did you think about that?
I mean, I've not heard anything. I'd imagine it was purely that he wanted to he was using this game as an opportunity to get minutes back in the legs, and that's why Nketiah got kind of 15, 20 minutes at the end of the game. I was a bit surprised that he didn't take Mateta off, but especially considering as, literally after the Millwall game, he came out and said, JP looks knackered, he needs a rest. So it's like, well, why not rest him then? I don't know if it was just purely tactical and he thought taking Mateta off, because in fairness, Mateta does play a very big role. And we've always had this at Palace, in fact, where the striker tends to play a very big role defending set pieces. But when we have Benteke, for example, I mean, the number of times he'd be the first man to clear it away, and Mateta does exactly the same job, maybe even to a better level. So maybe it was a case of trying to see the game out. But it is a shame not to see Uche play. I feel like the Devaney substitute, I do think he played quite well, and he came close to scoring a couple of times actually. But I just think that he's not creative enough to be coming on in that 10. And I feel like he does take a bit of time, 5 to 10 minutes, to kind of get up to the speed of the game. And, he had a nice effort from outside the box, which almost caused an issue. But I'd kind of almost prefer him to be coming on a bit deeper or later on in the game to kind of shore things up. That's kind of the substitute I'd make when you're, 2-1 up with 10 minutes to go and you need that energy. I would have rather Uche came on. But look, I'm sure we'll get some minutes out of him soon. We'll definitely see him play, probably against Kiev. That'll be his first probably significant contribution. But other than that, I mean, there's not really much to say about Uche. I mean, I think to be fair, I think he's really impressed Glasner in his kind of opening contribution. So we've just got to wait and see with him.
Yeah, I really, really like Uche. And actually, just speaking about Devaney and Pino there, I think that game highlighted how good for us Pino is defensively. It felt like when Devaney came on, defensively down that wing, it was a really big issue. And I think Pino has come in and clearly bought fully into the Glasner project, and he's putting in the work defensively as well, offensively. And that's really good to see, isn't it?
Oh, for sure. And I think actually it would be a bit of an oversight of us as a Palace podcast to not talk about Romain Esse.
Yeah.
Because obviously he was excluded from the matchday squad after Millwall, where he obviously started the game and wasn't particularly exciting and was dragged at halftime. And it's a really tricky one, this situation, isn't it? Because I think, you saw the exact opposites between the likes of Pino and Esse in that game, in that first half against Millwall. Pino loses the ball halfway into the Millwall half and makes a 50-yard sprint back, wins the ball back on the edge of our box, and then carries it back to where he'd originally lost the ball, all within the space of 20 seconds. Romain Esse was, for me, weak, shrugged off the ball too easily, and definitely didn't have that same commitment and fight to win the ball back. He kind of reminded me of Wilf in some aspects, where he'd lose the ball and was kind of like throwing his arms up and complaining and moaning, and you're just looking at him like, just get back in, win the ball. And he was just a little bit weak. And I know that Glasner's treatment of him from the outside looks harsh, but what I would say is that, you've got to remember he's working with these players every day. He's seeing them every day in training. He knows what they're good at. He knows what they're not good at. He's made it clear what he expects from players, and if a player's not going to give that and isn't going to show that, he's not going to play them. I can't, I like Esse. I think he's very promising, but I do question whether he's got kind of the right mindset, or at least the mindset that Glasner wants in his players.
Yeah, completely get you. I just think when you have young, skillful wingers, they come with a different mindset in terms of they are going to be selfish for a bit, especially in the younger early stages of their career. And I just think it was a little bit of a failure from the club really as a whole to just not get him loaned out, because I think it was obvious last season that Glasner didn't really fancy him yet. He wasn't brought in as a ready-made replacement, in my opinion. He's got a lack of minutes the whole of last season. So look, yes, we might have lacked a bit of squad depth that one position, but I just think a loan for them sort of players, you just need to do it because they need the confidence, they need the momentum, and the only way they're going to do that is get minutes. Yeah, we don't know if he's going to be good enough for a Glasner setup yet. Yes, Glasner gets more of him behind the scenes, but realistically, what's the point of keeping him this summer if we just kind of knew he was going to get a lack of minutes? In my opinion,
Well, this is the thing, and like you said about squad depth, it's a fair point to raise. But at the same time, if you're not going to play him anyway, then it makes no difference having him or not having him. As you said, I mean, he may as well be out on loan in the Championship. In fact, to be honest, I think when we first signed him, we should have sent him back on loan.
Yeah.
because he just needs those minutes. And like you said, he's a young player. It might be that when Glasner moves on, we get a different manager that comes in and really likes him and he suits his style of play and we see the best of him. But unfortunately, Glasner isn't looking beyond what's happening in the here and now. And at the moment, Esse's not good enough. And I think we saw that with Raksaki. And it's hard as fans because you want these young players to do well for us. But when you've got Devaney that can cover as the 10 and play deep, you've now got Uche and Pino as well. I just can't see any minutes really for Esse, especially seeing as he's quite clearly pissed Glasner off. Whether that's, valid or not, there's clearly an issue and he's not going to be starting games, let alone getting significant contributions. He kind of had his chance, and you look at Camvo, for example, started against Millwall and was absolutely bloody brilliant, made, I think, a really good first impression. Esse kind of did the opposite. I know it wasn't his first game, but football's about taking your opportunities. Look at what Devaney did last season. Every single, feature he had throughout the campaign, he scored goals, he worked hard. If you don't take your chances, you're not going to get minutes. And unfortunately, football's cutthroat. And like Glasner said, it's not all boohoo for Romain Esse. He's earning loads of money. He's living his dream. He's living all of our dreams. And ultimately, it's up to him whether he wants to take it. So it's a really tricky one for me, to be honest, mate. I really struggle to know which side to kind of be on. But those are my thoughts.
Yeah, no, and just finally on it, Mill game, I was happy to see him start, but then again, my head was like, Glasner doesn't rate him massively yet. Yes, I get it's a championship side, but you've got Uche on the bench, who Glasner clearly would prefer to play there because he brought him on at half time for him. So why didn't he do that? And
I don't
that's a
know if
bit
it's
weird
like
in
a
my opinion.
people pleasing. Is he just trying to keep people happy? And he's like, well, we're playing Millwall and we should beat them. It should have been a lot more comfortable than it was.
Yeah.
So he's like, I'll just get one of the starts for Esse out of the way. I don't know. It's a really tricky situation, isn't it?
Yeah. I just think blown in the summer would have just helped massively. But is what it is. We move on. Hopefully he'll learn his lessons. If he's not doing the work ethic behind the scenes or on the pitch, then Glasner said that's what you need to be able to play for him. So we can't complain with that. And Glasner's brought us glory at the moment. We'll see how it goes. And then finally, we have obviously spoken earlier in this episode, 17 games undefeated. And it's easy to just say it's because of Glasner. But Henry, like this whole run, this 17 games, what do you think it's kind of come down to as well as the manager in terms of the tactics and the players and that?
I think the backbone of the squad, I think from Dean Henderson through to the back three and the wing backs, I think the way I define it would be the backbone of the squad, but also mainly how settled it's been. There's not much change because there can't be because there isn't much depth. But I do think that's, touch wood, luckily we haven't had many injuries and hopefully that continues in those positions because as a three, they all complement each other perfectly, and I think we've been good at attackingly in an attacking sense. I apologise, but we haven't scored that many goals. We've looked positive, but not scored that many goals. So really, the foundation is the defence. Just take the game yesterday against West Ham, for example. To a man, each of them were absolutely superb. Not only were they great defensively, but they were actually probably the biggest threats. Obviously Mitchell scored. Gay almost scored just before Mateta's goal. Aquar almost scored a couple of times. So did Richards. So for me, it's that back five. They've just been so good defensively, offensively, in possession. Just the absolute bedrock of this team.
Yeah, and I think to be fair, just including Dino in that, because the amount of times we've maybe been a little bit under the cosh, especially last season, and Henderson made a crucial save when it was maybe 0-0, 1-1 or whatever, when we were 1-0 up. And that's got us kind of them points over the line because of that. And that just backs up your kind of the whole backbone because that system is perfect and it works so well. And it works even better because that whole back five are just willing to basically do everything to try and reduce the amount of goals and to keep the clean sheet. And it just the togetherness for me is just absolutely ridiculous between the whole squad. Like this squad is so likable. They're all giving 100% on, let's say 99% of them are giving 110% for the shirt. They come in, they don't mind maybe if there was a player coming in for them in terms of like the Hughes, Kamada, Wharton, Lerma, they all compete for the same spot. They're doing really well together as well. And they all just clearly whatever Glasner says to them week in, week out, or every day, whatever he says, they clearly are like fully in love with this project that he's got, even before he won us a trophy, right?
No, for sure, 100%. And also, I think you're completely right. It's the togetherness. I think, by the time that we come to play Liverpool, who are, of course, the only other Premier League team to be unbeaten this season, a bit of a better ways for them. Obviously, they've won all 5 of their first games, sitting on top, 5 points clear, which is crazy. 5 games in, 5 points clear.
Yeah.
But anyway, I digress. I think that by that time, by the time that game kicks off, I think it will be 160 between that and 165 days since we last lost a game. Obviously, the 5-0 away to Newcastle. I genuinely, I think it does get to a point where a team kind of forget how to lose, and you kind of just get into the rhythm of everything so well that it kind of just becomes. That's why you kind of see that when these runs happen, they can extend, even though they're rare, they can extend as long as 17, 18, up to 27 games that Man City have done before, which is just, I mean, we're not going to get there, but I just think that you kind of get to a point where you forget how to lose. The players don't know what it's like to lose, or they're so used to the feeling of not losing that they're desperate to maintain that. And, I'm sure at the same time there'll be performance incentive bonuses for all of them in their contracts, which obviously also help. And there's all sorts of reasons. But I do think that Glasner has just, I mean, he's completely changed the culture at this club, and we can't underestimate that, man. Like, the fact that we're sat here talking about being 17 games unbeaten, beating the likes of Manchester City, Liverpool, Villa twice, Spurs, winning two trophies, for fuck's sake. I mean, like,
Yeah.
could we've known each other for quite a long time now. Could you imagine the first conversation we had a few years ago being, by the way, in a couple of years' time, you could be sat down talking about being 17 games unbeaten and winning 2
Never, mate.
trophies. I mean, guys, pinch yourself, because this is just wild, man. It's a wild time to be a Palace fan, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's insane. And just to talk about Glasner's mentality, like, yeah, he made a few changes against Millwall, but it was decently, decently strong. I know we only drew that 1-1, but we're playing a lot of games. So there is fatigue playing into this, but let's just talk about the Arsenal Man City game for 10 seconds. There's no way Glasner's dropping his best creative players in that game because he's playing a bigger team. Glasner's going to win that game, and he's got this elite mentality where he is going to try and win all 4 competitions. And I mean, in all honesty, are there many managers in the league who actually will want to win all 4 competitions right now? If especially around the mid-table level, I think we even saw last season Thomas Frank, he'd fully rotate his squad for the cup games. Bournemouth would do the exact same. But
Yeah,
Glasner,
yeah. Some
I
clubs just
remember
don't
over
care.
Christmas, yeah, it's crazy. And over Christmas last season, we were not doing great, but we had Arsenal in the quarterfinal of the Carabao Cup, and we made minimal changes,
Yeah.
even though we had a Premier League game 3 or 4 days later. And not many managers do that. So, how enjoyable is it just to be able to go to every game and think your club's going out there to win?
Yeah, it's great, and I mean, this will change come Tuesday, Wednesday, when the next round of Carabao, or the second half of this round of Carabao Cup games are played. But at the minute, 8 Premier League teams have already been knocked out. So there's a chance. I mean, that, like,
Yeah,
there always is, and this is the thing for me, is that he's done it before. These players have done it before. Other than Eze leaving, it's the same team. Every single one of these players here, and obviously the new boys that have come in, have done this before twice now. They know what to do. They know how to do that. They know how to get there. Obviously, the Community Shield is a little bit different. Um, Obviously, there's no knockouts to get there in the same sense. But with the FA Cup, we've done this. We've been here, and the players are going to want it more because, like I said, and this isn't necessarily about the monetary side of things. It's also about these players' careers, and the likes of Will Hughes, who, to be honest, was probably kind of getting to the point where he was accepting the fact that he'd maybe peter out his career and not win anything
yeah,
else, and he kind of seen the limits. But no, and like Joel Ward saying, this is my ceiling, but it's really you guys' floor. And I just think that is, it's nice to say, but it's a different thing to believe that. And I
mm,
think they do believe that. They genuinely believe that they can only go further. And it's just, man, it's just incredible. I can't, like I said, I can't believe it. And there is no reason why we can't be challenging for the Carabao Cup, for the Conference League, which I really do think we should be going deep in, and also the FA Cup again this year. And who knows? I mean, we're 4th at the minute. It's probably not going to stay that way. But if we can finish in the European spaces in the league, then Jesus Christ, it would be another brilliant campaign, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would be absolutely insane, especially with Europe as well. You know, dealing with them fixtures will be really hard, and who knows where we'll end up by the end of the season. But one thing we definitely do know is that we'll definitely fight for every game, and we will definitely compete in every game, and we could do very, very well this season if a little bit of luck goes our way, obviously as well, because you do need that. But one thing, Crystal Palace fans, just enjoy the moment, as Henry kind of talked about earlier. Drink it in what we are going through right now, because it is just insane. 17 games undefeated, as we keep on bringing up, because it's so insane. You know, this is unbelievable. We'll see what happens against Liverpool next week. Just imagine if we get a draw or even a win out of that somehow. You know, we are the
Hey,
only team.
last two games,
Mate,
isn't it? So they've not beaten us.
I know.
You just never know. It's crazy,
Can
isn't it,
you
that you're going into this game and you actually think, well, wow, we could be 18 games unbeaten, and we are playing the champions who have won every game this year. But there's no reason why we can't give them a good game.
Exactly, like the only two teams left in the Prem undefeated as well. It's just a perfect match, you know, a perfect match to cause that upset. We'll see what happens. As we said, drink this in. Please enjoy this, Crystal Palace fans. Yes, clubs can always do better and stuff, but please, you know, just enjoy this wave. Enjoy it whilst it's still there. Enjoy this squad whilst we still have them, because they all love us as much as we love them right now. That has been all for today. Hope you have enjoyed this short episode. We will be back next week after the Liverpool game to talk about that. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to follow. And yeah, we'll see you later.